Welcome to Sports Talk with Jenilee. My name is Jenilee Borick, and if you are a football fan right now, you know that a lot is happening in the NFL, especially because of that Browns-Steelers game that happened last night, Thursday Night Football. No one has really been talking about what happened during the game except for what happened at the very end of the game with the brawl happening. And I wanted to give my own personal opinions on what transpired with this fight that happened on the field. First off, I want to say that it's absolutely inexcusable, and it was an act of violence that happened out there, and not just one act of violence by Myles Garrett, but acts of violence by other players as well. And I want to mention for sure that, look, if you or I did that in public, we would probably be arrested for assault for what Myles Garrett did to Mason Rudolph. So that's my first point. It's not only awful to see an act of violence like that on the football field or on any field or court or in professional sports for that matter, but it also just went above and beyond anything that I've ever seen. And once again, is classified as assault, and most normal people would be arrested if they did that to someone. So it was absolutely horrible to see, inexcusable. These are grown men playing a professional sport that are supposed to be role models. They get paid mightily for doing something they love, something that a lot of people don't get to do. A lot of people don't get to get paid for something that they love to do. And these professional athletes get to do that. And there's a lot of kids that watch them. And again, it was just extremely unfortunate, disappointing, and heartbreaking, to be honest, to see what transpired on the field. Now, the NFL did come out early this morning and gave out suspensions and fines for the players that were involved, and actually gave out fines to both teams. And I do have to commend the NFL for acting quickly and taking this matter serious, because it is a serious matter. Now, if you didn't see the game last night, I'm sure that you have seen the footage of what happened at the very end of the game. There were 8 seconds left in the game. The Cleveland Browns were definitely going to win the game. There was no shot for the Pittsburgh Steelers to win. Myles Garrett sacked Mason Rudolph, and at the end of the sack is when the brawl basically started happening. Myles Garrett removed Rudolph's helmet, and he hit him in the head with it. And then other players started to get involved, and it turned into a complete circus on the field. And, you know, again, this was just an awful act of violence for anyone to watch. Now, Myles Garrett has been suspended for the remainder of the season, including if they go to the postseason, and he's been suspended indefinitely. So that does not mean that he will be reinstated for the offseason or even for next season at this point. We will have to see what happens with that. I do think that that was the proper punishment for what he did, because as I've mentioned, that act, if you watch it, if that helmet would have hit Rudolph's head a little bit different, we would be talking about something even more serious than we're even talking about. We could be talking about a potential very, very serious head injury to Rudolph. Thank goodness that's not actually what happened, but just that it could have gone that far. And Myles Garrett at that point, if it would have gone that far, he would have definitely been arrested. So he actually is lucking out here by just being suspended indefinitely by the NFL at this point. But I absolutely think that it was the correct punishment that the NFL handed out. Of course, Maurkice Pouncey got in on the action. He was punching, and maybe some kicking was involved. There were multiple players involved. And Pouncey got a 3-game suspension and fine for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Larry Ogunjobi from the Cleveland Browns got a 1-game suspension and a fine as well. So again, I just wanted to touch on the fact that this is absolutely something that no one ever wants to see in professional sports. And I'm not just going to get on Myles Garrett's case, because I think it's so much bigger than that. I think any of the players that got involved with punching and kicking, there is absolutely no place for that in football. And to be honest, there's just no place for that ever. I just think it's very, very sad that we saw, again, grown men who are supposed to be role models out there, who are supposed to be promoting being a professional athlete and what it means and what that responsibility is that you have to be acting in such a manner was just disgraceful, to be honest, and very, very disappointing. And I'm also going to blame the NFL refs a little bit on this one. And this was something my friend pointed out to me. And you know what? I'm really happy he said it, because the more I thought about it, the more I thought, you know what? He is so right on this. That actual hit on Mason Rudolph, the sack that came before the brawl that Garrett did, he sacked him. That was actually a late hit, and it should have been a roughing the passer flag by the NFL refs. Now, had the refs thrown the roughing the passer flag, who knows? Maybe things wouldn't have gone as far. Maybe they would have been able to calm things down faster than it got to the point that they were heightened as much as they were. I'm not sure, but you know what? The reffing in the NFL this season has been atrocious for most standards, and this was one that they got it wrong, because look, they threw the flags when the brawl started breaking out, but there should have been flags thrown just for that late hit on the quarterback. And I can pretty much guarantee you, if it would have been Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees that back there that got hit that late, those flags would have come out. And again, possibly this brawl wouldn't have happened. So that is something that the NFL refs missed. And I did want to point that out, because again, this could have been something that maybe could have been stopped before it even got to the point that it did. Now, of course, we're left with the feeling of, again, not even talking about the game, talking about the punishments and the fight that happened on the field, and the fact that, you know, none of us as fans want to see something like this happen again. There's just absolutely no room for it. There's no excuse. And look, people shouldn't even be behaving in their everyday lives like that, like I said, out in public or on the street or at home for that matter. And so there's definitely no place for it in professional sports. So that kind of sums up what my opinions are about the matter, and also just touching base on the fact that the NFL did hand out punishments today, and then we'll have to see how far things go down into the future. But that wraps up this episode of Sports Talk with Jenilee. You can check me out everywhere on social media. My Twitter is at Jenilee Boric, my first and last name. My Instagram is All Things Jenilee. My Facebook page is All Things Jenilee, and my website is allthingsjenilee.com. I love talking sports anytime I get a chance, so be sure to follow me on social media. Check me out, and I will catch you guys next time.